Welcome back to Think Sip Bright. For this episode, I wanted to talk about something that was central in my fourth novel, Souls for Supper. That's Pandora's Box. Now, everybody's heard of Pandora's Box, but I don't know if a whole lot of people know where it dates back to and some of the mythology with it. So, in brief, Pandora in Greek mythology was the first woman. She's actually the biblical equivalent is Eve, but there were similarities and differences between the two. Eve had the apple with knowledge, and her biting into it basically unleashed chaos for humanity. The same thing happened with Pandora and her box. But the original story of Pandora, she did not actually have a box. It was pithos, which roughly translates to a jar. So the early accounts were that she had this jar with something in it, and she did not know what it was. The mistranslation actually dates back to the 16th century with a guy named Aramis. He was of Rotterdam, and he translated Hesiod's tale of Pandora into Latin. That was when he translated pithos to pixis, which meant box. For some reason, the term Pandora's box has just endured ever since. I guess it's just a little more catchy than Pandora's jar. Later on, there was a painting of Pandora that depicted her with a box, so that basically further cemented that interpretation. Hesiod was a poet, and he wrote the first version of the story that we can find. It's in a poem called Theogony, but the Greek myth goes on about Zeus gifted Pandora. There are a few different interpretations. One was Pandora was basically gifted by all of the gods and goddesses to be someone extra special, and that she purposely unleashed what was in the jar. The other version goes that she accidentally unleashed everything in the jar and then she quickly closed it. Both versions basically have the same results. After it was unleashed, she closed it, and the only thing remaining in the jar was hope. So basically, it was kind of like the Great Flood in a way, where everything was just a cleansing. And the word Pandora, her name actually means all gifted, and that goes back to the whole interpretation of what the gods had given her as far as gifts. It's never explained why only hope remains in the jar. And it's also never explained whatever happens to Pandora's box. It's almost like the story kind of ends right there. So either the original author of it just never had anything further to go on and wanted to leave it open for the reader to interpret. That could be the belief systems back then. Everything was kind of left open to interpretation as far as these people were immortal, so they continued to live, and they were gods and goddesses. So some versions of it have Pandora's box as being locked away in someplace safe, but it's never specified where, and it's never specified if it was ever found again. We see the story of Pandora pop up over and over again throughout history, and Homer's Iliad actually even references her. As with anything, when it's passed down the line, interpretations change. Of course, we modernize stories and people use them for fiction, so there's been lots of different takes on Pandora, Pandora's box. I used it in my book Souls for Supper, and it was the central piece. I wanted to explain where the box had gone. It basically was never seen again. So I had it as something created by the people of Atlantis. They were a people that were doing scientific research, and they ended up opening a dimensional breach that was a doorway to the afterlife. So to contain this, what they did was Pandora was this engineer who designed this elaborate box. Now the box in my story is not actually a box, and I'll put a picture of it up at the end of this episode in the slideshow. My interpretation is a pyramid lined with many gears and basically unfolds, and that is what is containing this dimensional breach. So in a way, when it is opened, if it's opened in the book, it unleashes what is inside, which is complete chaos. It's the chaos of the afterlife coming in. So when I was working on the spin-off comic that I did, I had multiple artists depicting what was going on, and I wanted them to stay true. So I had given them the original drawing that my brother did, and I had them each interpret something different. I wanted the artist to completely envision what their version of chaos is, because to each person, chaos and evil might be something different. So it was really cool seeing some of the things that had come back that way, and maybe I'll put a couple of those up too, just to show you. There's not much more to go on there. That's kind of what I wanted to cover with this episode. I just wanted to do it because it was something that had always fascinated me. You can read more of the poems and stuff online that were associated with it. If you never knew the phrase, well, we just opened Pandora's box, now you know kind of where it came from. So that's all I have for this episode. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.